Jasmine Washington stared at her first-class ticket, then at the white woman comfortably settled in her seat. The flight attendant's dismissive glance burned her skin. "Find another seat, please," she whispered. Then Jasmine's phone rang. The airline's CEO himself. Nobody knew what was coming next. Before we dive into this shocking story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever faced discrimination or witnessed someone standing up for themselves in an impossible situation, hit that like button and subscribe to hear stories of justice and transformation. Trust me, what happens next in this flight will leave you speechless. Jasmine Washington was not your typical 26-year-old. While most of her peers were climbing corporate ladders or drowning in student loan debt, Jasmine had already built a tech empire valued at over $11 billion. Neuratech, her groundbreaking artificial intelligence company, had revolutionized healthcare data processing, making her personally worth approximately $4.8 billion. Despite her astronomical wealth, Jasmine preferred to keep a low profile. Today, she wore simple dark jeans, white sneakers, and an understated cashmere sweater. Her natural hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and apart from her sleek laptop bag and a small carry-on suitcase, nothing about her screamed billionaire. This deliberate choice to travel without bodyguards or assistants allowed her the privacy she cherished. Jasmine was boarding United Airlines Flight 1837 from San Francisco International Airport to John F. Kennedy in New York. The 6-hour journey would give her ample time to prepare for tomorrow morning's critical meeting, finalizing the acquisition of DataSync, a smaller but innovative AI company whose neural mapping technology would perfectly complement Neuratech's platforms. She'd specifically requested Seat 3A, a window seat in first class. Jasmine had learned early in her career that window seats provided both the privacy and the uninterrupted workspace she needed during flights. No drink carts bumping her elbow, no passengers climbing over her to use the restroom. Just her laptop, and enough time to fine-tune her acquisition strategy. Her path to success had been anything but easy. Raised by her single mother in a modest Oakland neighborhood after her father was wrongfully imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit, Jasmine grew up understanding that America operated by different rules for different people. Her mother, Deborah Washington, had worked 2 jobs to afford the computer programming classes that ignited Jasmine's passion for technology. Even now, with billions in her bank account, Jasmine regularly experienced discrimination. Just last month, a luxury car dealership salesman had directed her to the more affordable models, despite her inquiry about their most expensive vehicle. 3 weeks ago, the maitre d' at an exclusive San Francisco restaurant had asked if she was looking for someone, rather than assuming she had a reservation. Jasmine could have easily flaunted her wealth, arrived in a chauffeur-driven Bentley, flashed her black titanium credit card, name-dropped her connections to half the Fortune 500 CEOs. But that wasn't her way. She firmly believed her work should speak for itself, that respect should be earned through character and achievement, not intimidation or showmanship. Success is the best revenge, her mother always said. And Jasmine had taken that philosophy to heart. Each time she encountered prejudice or dismissal, she channeled that energy into building Neuratech into something even greater. As she walked down the jetway toward her flight, Jasmine mentally rehearsed her negotiation strategy for tomorrow's meeting. The acquisition would not only strengthen Neuratech's market position but would save hundreds of jobs that might otherwise be eliminated in a less favorable buyout. She needed this flight time to ensure everything went perfectly. Jasmine nodded politely to the flight attendant checking boarding passes at the aircraft door, then made her way toward the first-class cabin. She found row 3, but paused. Someone was already sitting in her window seat. The internal debate began immediately in Jasmine's mind. Should she assert herself and risk creating a scene? Or should she simply take another available seat to avoid confrontation? It was a calculation she'd made countless times before, weighing the cost of speaking up against the price of remaining silent. Today, with so much depending on her preparation time during this flight, Jasmine decided she needed her assigned seat. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Excuse me," Jasmine said with a polite smile, her voice steady and calm. "I believe you're in seat 3A. That's my assigned seat. The woman occupying the window seat barely glanced up from her magazine. She appeared to be in her late 50s, with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, an expensive-looking cream blazer, and several diamond rings adorning her manicured fingers. I prefer the window, the woman replied dismissively, returning her attention to her magazine without further acknowledgement. Jasmine remained patient. I understand, but I specifically booked this seat. My boarding pass says 3A. She held out her phone displaying her mobile boarding pass. The woman, Patricia Harrington, though Jasmine didn't know her name yet, looked up with thinly veiled annoyance. There must be a mistake. I always get window seats. The exchange had attracted the attention of a flight attendant named Brandon Miller, a 38-year-old with 11 years of service at United Airlines. He approached with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Is there a problem here? Brandon asked, his gaze settling on Jasmine rather than the woman occupying the disputed seat. Yes, Jasmine explained calmly. I'm assigned to seat 3A, but this seat is occupied. Brandon's expression remained pleasant but distant. Let me see your boarding pass, please. Jasmine showed him her phone. Brandon glanced at it briefly. There seems to be some confusion, he said, turning toward Jasmine rather than addressing Patricia. Perhaps there was a computer error. First class is completely full today, but I can find you a seat in economy. Jasmine felt a familiar tension in her chest, the sensation that accompanied these all-too-frequent encounters. There's no confusion on my part. My boarding pass clearly shows 3A, which I specifically selected when booking. Patricia clutched her handbag closer to her body, a subtle but unmistakable gesture that made Jasmine's heart sink. She'd seen that reaction countless times before, the instinctive protection of valuables when a black person stood nearby. I don't appreciate being made to feel uncomfortable, Patricia said loudly enough for other passengers to hear. These people always make such a fuss over nothing. The cabin had grown quiet. Other first-class passengers, predominantly white business executives, either stared openly at the unfolding scene or studiously avoided looking in that direction, suddenly fascinated by safety cards and in-flight magazines. One passenger, however, watched with particular interest. Dr. Marcus Reed, a 42-year-old professor of sociology at Columbia University, observed the interaction with growing concern. As one of only two other black passengers in the first-class cabin, he recognized exactly what was happening. Brandon's smile had tightened. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to take a seat so we can complete boarding. There's an available spot in economy that I can show you to. The ma'am was directed at Jasmine, not Patricia. Jasmine felt a surge of indignation rise in her throat. She had paid over $4,000 for this specific seat. She needed the quiet workspace. And most importantly, she refused to be dismissed and devalued yet again. I'd like you to check both of our boarding passes, Jasmine insisted firmly. I selected seat 3A specifically when booking this flight, and I'm not being asked to move simply because someone else wants my seat. Patricia rolled her eyes dramatically. Why is this becoming such an ordeal? Just find another seat. The plane is the same for everyone. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps I could offer you a voucher for future travel if you'll take the economy seat. We really need to complete boarding. Jasmine remained composed, though her heart raced. I'm not interested in a voucher. I'm interested in receiving the service I paid for, which includes my assigned first-class seat, 3A. Other passengers had begun to murmur. A middle-aged white man in a business suit muttered something about holding everyone up. An elderly woman shook her head disapprovingly in Jasmine's direction. Dr. Reed unbuckled his seatbelt and stood. Excuse me, he said, addressing Brandon. Shouldn't you check both boarding passes to see who's actually assigned to that seat? Brandon's expression flickered with annoyance. Sir, please remain seated while we resolve this issue. Patricia's voice rose sharply. I don't feel safe with her standing over me like this. Can someone please do something? Another passenger, a 34-year-old Asian American woman named Emily Chen, had discreetly begun recording the incident on her phone. Without drawing attention to herself, she captured Brandon's dismissive treatment and Patricia's escalating claims of feeling threatened despite Jasmine's calm demeanor. Brandon spoke into his radio. "We have a situation in first class that needs assistance." Jasmine stood her ground, though she felt the familiar weight of dozens of judging eyes upon her. This was far from the first time she'd been expected to quietly accept injustice for the comfort of others, to make herself small so that someone else could feel big. But today was not the day she would step aside. "I'm not moving," Jasmine said quietly but firmly. "I'd like to speak with your supervisor." "Ma'am, I need you to lower your voice and calm down," Brandon said, despite the fact that Jasmine had spoken at a perfectly reasonable volume and maintained her composure throughout the encounter. "I am calm," Jasmine replied evenly. "I simply want to sit in the seat I paid for. I'd like you to verify both of our boarding passes, please." Brandon's jaw tightened. "If you continue to be disruptive, I'll have to call security." Patricia shifted in the disputed seat, her expression a mixture of indignation and performative fear. "I don't feel safe," she repeated loudly. "This woman is threatening me." The absurdity of the claim might have been laughable if it weren't so harmful. Jasmine, standing with her hands at her sides, speaking in measured tones, was being portrayed as threatening by a woman who had stolen her seat and was now playing victim. "I haven't threatened anyone," Jasmine stated clearly, aware that Emily Chen was still recording. "I've simply asked to sit in my assigned seat." Brandon spoke into his radio again. "Captain, we have an uncooperative passenger in first class refusing to take her seat. Request permission to call airport security." A few moments later, Captain Riley Evans, a 52-year-old pilot with 20 years of experience, emerged from the cockpit. His expression was stern as he approached. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, his gaze moving between Brandon and Jasmine. Before Jasmine could respond, Brandon jumped in. "This passenger is refusing to take an available seat in economy. She's disrupting the boarding process and making other passengers uncomfortable." Captain Evans turned to Jasmine. "Ma'am, I understand you may be disappointed, but we need to complete boarding. I'm going to have to ask you to either take the offered economy seat or deplane and speak with customer service about rebooking." Jasmine felt a flare of frustration. "Captain, I've been misrepresented to you. I'm not refusing to take an available seat. I'm requesting to sit in my assigned seat, 3A, which this passenger is currently occupying. No one has verified our boarding passes to determine who is actually assigned to this seat." Patricia interrupted. "This is ridiculous. I've never been treated so poorly in my life. I want her removed from this flight immediately." Dr. Reed stood again. "Captain, if I may." "Sir, please remain seated," Captain Evans said firmly. "But this woman has a valid point," Dr. Reed continued despite the captain's instruction. "No one has checked to see who's actually assigned to the seat in question. That seems like a reasonable first step." Captain Evans frowned. "Sir, I won't ask you again. Please sit down or you'll also be removed from this flight." Dr. Reed reluctantly sat, shaking his head in disgust. The main cabin door had been closed, but now reopened as two security officers, Warren Phillips and Devin Clark, boarded the aircraft in response to the captain's call. "What's the situation?" Officer Phillips asked, his hand resting casually near his taser. Captain Evans gestured toward Jasmine. "This passenger is refusing to comply with crew instructions and disrupting our departure." Jasmine maintained her composure even as her heart raced. "Officers, I'm simply trying to sit in my assigned seat, 3A. This passenger is occupying it, and the flight attendant has refused to verify our boarding passes to determine who is actually assigned to this seat." Officer Clark stepped toward Jasmine. "Ma'am, you need to comply with crew instructions immediately or you will be removed from this aircraft and potentially face charges." Emily Chen had moved her phone to capture this new development, while several other passengers had begun recording as well. The situation was seconds away from becoming yet another viral incident of a black passenger being forcibly removed from a flight when, unexpectedly, Jasmine's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, momentarily surprised. "I apologize, but this is important. May I take this call?" Without waiting for permission, she answered. "Hello, Jonathan." "Yes, this is quite a surprise." The security officers exchanged glances, uncertain how to proceed as Jasmine calmly explained her situation to the caller. "Yes, I'm currently standing in the first-class cabin of Flight 1837 to New York. I'm being asked to give up my assigned seat, 3A, without any verification of boarding passes, and security has been called to remove me from the flight." She paused, listening. "Yes, Captain Evans is standing right here. Would you like to speak with him?" A flicker of confusion crossed Captain Evans' face. "The captain doesn't need to speak to anyone," Officer Phillips began, but Jasmine was already extending her phone toward Captain Evans. "Captain, Jonathan Pearson would like a word with you. He's the CEO of United Airlines." A stunned silence fell over the first-class cabin. Captain Evans stared at the phone, his expression shifting from disbelief to concern. After a moment's hesitation, he took the device. "This is Captain Evans," he said, his voice carefully neutral. Then his eyes widened. "Yes, sir. Of course, sir. I understand. Immediately, sir." The atmosphere in the cabin had transformed completely. Brandon's face had drained of color. Patricia's expression flickered between confusion and unease. The security officers stood awkwardly, no longer certain of their role in this rapidly changing situation. The entire first-class cabin watched in stunned silence as Captain Evans handed the phone back to Jasmine, his demeanor dramatically altered. "Ms. Washington, please accept my sincere apologies for this misunderstanding," he said, his voice now deferent. "Mr. Pearson has instructed me to ground the flight temporarily while we resolve this situation to your complete satisfaction." Brandon's mouth opened and closed wordlessly, while Patricia shifted uncomfortably in seat 3A, her earlier confidence evaporating. "Thank you, Captain," Jasmine replied with the same calm dignity she'd maintained throughout the ordeal. Captain Evans turned to address the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay. We're experiencing a seating issue that requires immediate attention. We'll be holding at the gate briefly while we sort this out." He then lowered his voice and spoke directly to Brandon. "Verify those boarding passes. Now." Brandon fumbled with his tablet, his earlier arrogance replaced by nervous energy. "Ms. Harrington, may I see your boarding pass, please?" Patricia reluctantly produced a paper boarding pass from her purse. Brandon scanned it, then checked his tablet, his face growing increasingly pale. "Ms. Harrington, your assigned seat is actually 4C, not 3A, he confirmed, his voice barely audible. Patricia's expression hardened. "There must be some mistake. I specifically requested a window seat." "There's no mistake," Brandon replied, unable to meet her gaze. "Your boarding pass clearly shows 4C. The murmurs in the cabin grew louder as passengers processed this revelation. Emily Chin continued recording discreetly, capturing the dramatic shift in power dynamics. Captain Evans addressed the security officers. "Thank you, gentlemen, but your assistance is no longer required. This matter is being handled internally." As the officers departed, passengers throughout the plane began speculating about Jasmine's identity. Whispers of, "Who is she?" and "How does she know the CEO?" rippled through the cabin. Patricia remained firmly planted in seat 3A, clutching her handbag. "I'm not moving. I've already settled in, and it would be incredibly inconvenient to change seats now." Before anyone could respond, a new figure hurried down the jetway and onto the plane. Alicia Morales, the airline's regional director, approached with an expression of barely concealed panic. "Ms. Washington, I cannot begin to express how deeply sorry we are for this incident," she said, slightly breathless from her rush to the aircraft. "Mr. Pearson called me personally. We are absolutely mortified. Jasmine nodded acknowledgement but said nothing, allowing the situation to unfold. Alicia turned to Patricia. "Ma'am, I need you to move to your assigned seat immediately." Patricia's face flushed with anger. "Do you have any idea who I am? My husband is Gregory Harrington of Harrington Industries. He won't be pleased to hear about this treatment." The name registered with Jasmine immediately. Harrington Industries was a major player in the tech sector, and if she recalled correctly, Gregory Harrington sat on the board of several companies, including the very one Jasmine was planning to acquire tomorrow. Alicia remained firm despite Patricia's attempt at intimidation. "Ms. Harrington, I understand your frustration, but you are in the wrong seat. Please gather your belongings and move to seat 4C. This direct confrontation with reality seemed to trigger something in Patricia. "I will not be treated this way. I want to speak with your supervisor immediately." What would you do if you were in Jasmine's position? Comment number 1 if you think she should continue standing her ground, or number 2 if you believe she should take another seat to avoid further drama. Hit that like button if you've ever witnessed discrimination being called out in public, and subscribe to hear how this high-stakes confrontation unfolds. Have you ever been in a situation where the tables turned unexpectedly? Let me know in the comments below. And can you believe what's about to happen next as this airline standoff reaches new heights? While Patricia Harrington continued her refusal to vacate seat 3A, Jasmine's mind was racing. Gregory Harrington, Patricia's husband, wasn't just any CEO, he was the head of Harrington Industries, a major technology conglomerate that controlled substantial shares in DataSync, the very company Jasmine was flying to New York to acquire. The coincidence seemed too perfect to be random. Had Patricia recognized her? Was this some bizarre negotiation tactic? Jasmine doubted it. Her deliberately low profile meant she wasn't easily recognizable to those outside her immediate industry circles. More likely, this was simply an entitled woman used to getting her way, unaware she'd chosen the wrong seat and the wrong person to bully. "This is utterly ridiculous," Patricia declared loudly, addressing the growing audience of first-class passengers rather than the airline staff. "I've been a loyal United customer for 20 years. My husband flies over 100,000 miles annually with this airline." Alicia Morales maintained her professional composure. "Ms. Harrington, your loyalty is deeply appreciated. However, that doesn't change the fact that your assigned seat is 4C. Ms. Washington specifically booked seat 3A and is entitled to sit there." Patricia pulled out her phone. "I'm calling my husband right now. He'll straighten this out immediately." As she dialed, Jasmine's phone vibrated with a text message from her assistant, Zoe Taylor. "DataSync board members just called. They know about the flight incident. Video already online. Hashtag first class while black trending. How do you want to handle?" Jasmine suppressed a sigh. Of course this was happening now, hours before the most significant acquisition in her company's history. She quickly typed a response: "Maintain course. No statements yet. We'll call in 20. Meanwhile, social media was exploding. Emily Chen's video, hastily uploaded during the confrontation, had already garnered thousands of views and shares. Twitter users were identifying United Airlines, calling for boycotts, and demanding answers. The hashtag #FirstClassWhileBlack was climbing trending charts, accompanied by others like hashtag #FlyingWhileBlack and hashtag United Against Racism. Patricia's face reddened as she spoke into her phone. "Gregory, you won't believe what's happening. They're trying to make me move seats for some girl who claims it's hers. Yes, I've told them who you are." She listened briefly, then thrust the phone toward Alicia. "My husband would like to speak with you." Alicia took the phone with reluctance. "This is Alicia Morales, Regional Director for United." She listened for several seconds, her expression growing increasingly strained. "Sir, with all due respect. Yes, I understand who you are, but... Sir, that's not possible. We cannot. Mr. Harrington, I'm afraid threats aren't helpful in this situation. She handed the phone back to Patricia, who looked smugly triumphant. "My husband has made it clear that if I'm forced to move, he'll ensure United loses substantial business contracts. He's also prepared to terminate all discussions with Neurotech regarding their interest in DataSync." The last statement was clearly meant as a generic corporate threat, but Patricia had unknowingly revealed just how interconnected this situation was becoming. Jasmine carefully controlled her expression, not wanting to show her recognition of the company names. Dr. Reed, who had been observing quietly since being silenced earlier, chose this moment to approach. "Ms. Washington. I'm Marcus Reed. I couldn't help overhearing, and I think we should speak privately for a moment." Jasmine studied him with cautious curiosity. "Dr. Reed, is it?" He nodded. "Professor of Sociology at Columbia, yes. But also a board member at DataSync." This revelation changed everything. Jasmine followed him to a quieter section of the first-class cabin. "I've been following your work at Neurotech for some time," Dr. Reed said quietly. "Quite remarkable innovations. We were looking forward to tomorrow's meeting, though I must say, this isn't how I expected us to meet." "Nor I," Jasmine agreed. "I assume the Harringtons were unaware of my identity when this began." "Almost certainly. Gregory mentioned a potential acquisition meeting, but I doubt he connected it to you personally. Patricia," he paused diplomatically, "tends to view assigned seating as mere suggestions." Jasmine processed this information rapidly. "So tomorrow I'm supposed to negotiate with a man whose wife just attempted to have me removed from a flight for requesting my assigned seat?" "So it would appear," Dr. Reed confirmed. "Though I should mention that several board members have been advocating for an alignment with Neurotech specifically because of your company's ethical reputation. This incident may actually strengthen your position with certain factions." As they spoke, Captain Evans approached with renewed concern. "Ms. Washington, Mr. Pearson has requested an update. Additionally, we've reviewed Brandon Miller's service record and found 3 previous complaints involving similar treatment of minority passengers that were never properly addressed." This pattern of behavior didn't surprise Jasmine, though the captain's transparency did. The power dynamics had shifted so dramatically that everyone was now scrambling to distance themselves from Brandon's actions. Across the cabin, Patricia was engaged in another heated phone call, presumably still with her husband. Her gestures grew increasingly agitated as she realized her usual tactics weren't working. "What exactly did Mr. Harrington threaten?" Jasmine asked Alicia, who had joined their conversation. Alicia hesitated. "He suggested that his company would cancel several major contracts with United worth approximately $40 million annually. He also mentioned having enough board influence to block any acquisition attempts by Neurotech." "I see," Jasmine said calmly. "And what is United's position on this matter?" "We stand firmly behind you, Ms. Washington," Alicia replied without hesitation. Mr. Pearson was absolutely clear. United Airlines will not be intimidated into allowing discriminatory treatment of any passenger, regardless of financial threats. While this principled stance was commendable, Jasmine suspected it had more to do with her personal connection to the CEO than any corporate ethics. Still, she appreciated the support in this moment. "Ms. Washington," Captain Evans interjected, "given the circumstances, would you prefer we remove Ms. Harrington from the flight entirely? We can arrange alternative transportation for her." Before Jasmine could answer, a commotion erupted at the front of the plane. The cabin door had reopened, and Gregory Harrington himself was boarding, having apparently rushed to the airport after his wife's call. Tall, distinguished, and radiating authority in his tailored suit, he strode purposefully toward the first-class cabin. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, glaring at Alicia. "Why is my wife being harassed over a simple seat assignment?" The cabin fell silent as all attention focused on this new development. The corporate titan versus the tech billionaire, though only one side knew the full identities involved. Jasmine felt a moment of clarity amidst the chaos. What had begun as a simple case of seat theft had evolved into something far more complex, a tangled web of business interests, racial dynamics, and power plays that would have consequences far beyond this flight. As Gregory Harrington continued his blustering demands, Jasmine's phone rang again. It was her mother. "Honey, are you okay?" Deborah Washington's concerned voice came through clearly. "You're all over the internet right now. Some woman tried to get you thrown off a plane." "I'm fine, Mom," Jasmine assured her, moving slightly away from the group. "Just another day in America." "I'm watching the video now," her mother replied, her voice tight with familiar worry. "It's like that time at Westfield Mall all over again." The memory flashed vividly in Jasmine's mind. She was 12 years old, shopping with her mother when a store security guard had followed them continuously, then accused her mother of shoplifting. Despite Deborah's calm requests to check the receipts in her bag, the guard had grown increasingly aggressive until the store manager finally intervened. No apology was ever offered. That day had changed something in Jasmine. Watching her dignified, hard-working mother humiliated for no reason beyond the color of her skin had ignited a determination that eventually fueled her success. "Never let them make you small," her mother had said afterward. "But never give them the satisfaction of losing your composure either." 20 years later, that lesson remained at her core. "I'm handling it, Mom," Jasmine said, returning to the present. "I'll call you back soon." As she ended the call, Gregory Harrington's voice rose above the cabin noise. "This is corporate suicide, Morales. By this time tomorrow, United will regret this decision." "And as for Neuratech," he continued, unaware of Jasmine's identity, "they can forget about any deal with DataSync. I'll personally ensure they never get within a mile of our technology." Jasmine squared her shoulders and stepped forward. The time for anonymity had passed. "Actually, Mr. Harrington," she said clearly, "I think we should discuss that directly. I'm Jasmine Washington, CEO of Neuratech." The stunned silence that followed was absolute. Gregory Harrington's expression cycled rapidly through confusion, disbelief, and finally, a dawning horror as he processed Jasmine's words. "You're Jasmine Washington, Neuratech's CEO?" "I am," Jasmine confirmed calmly. Patricia Harrington's face had drained of color. The implications were sinking in. She had unknowingly picked a fight with the very person her husband's business interests couldn't afford to alienate. The flight had now been delayed for nearly 2 hours. Throughout the cabin, passengers were growing increasingly restless. Some were missing connections, others were late for meetings, and all were watching the unfolding drama with a mixture of fascination and frustration. Alicia Morales was already working damage control, moving through the first-class cabin offering vouchers and apologies to the other passengers. "We sincerely regret the delay and appreciate your patience during this unusual situation." Gregory attempted to regain his composure, switching instantly to his business persona. "Ms. Washington, clearly there's been an unfortunate misunderstanding. I'm sure we can resolve this amicably." "The misunderstanding seems quite straightforward," Jasmine replied. "Your wife is sitting in my assigned seat and refused to move when asked. When I persisted, your wife claimed to feel threatened by my presence despite my calm demeanor, and your wife attempted to have me removed from the flight. When that failed, you personally threatened to sabotage both United Airlines and my company's business interests. Did I miss anything?" Gregory's jaw tightened. "You're taking this entirely out of context. Patricia simply prefers window seats, and this whole situation has been blown completely out of proportion." "Has it?" Jasmine asked. "Because from where I stand, this seems like a textbook example of the privilege and discrimination that occurs daily across this country." "Now you're playing the race card," Patricia interjected, finding her voice again. "This has nothing to do with race. This is about an overly aggressive person making me feel unsafe." Several passengers audibly scoffed at this claim, having witnessed Jasmine's consistent composure throughout the incident. Emily Chen, still recording, captured Patricia's outburst perfectly. "Ms. Harrington," Captain Evans said firmly, "security footage from the cabin has already been reviewed by our team. There is no evidence whatsoever that Ms. Washington behaved aggressively toward you at any point. Jasmine's phone buzzed again, another text from Zoe, footage leaked to media. All major networks picked it up. DataSync stock already down 3% in after-hours trading. Several board members calling, want to speak with you ASAP. The situation was spiraling beyond the confines of this aircraft. What had started as a personal indignity was rapidly transforming into a corporate crisis for multiple organizations. Gregory lowered his voice, stepping closer to Jasmine. Let's be reasonable. I'm prepared to offer Neurotech exclusive licensing rights to our proprietary algorithms as a gesture of goodwill. We can sign preliminary paperwork as soon as we land in New York. You're attempting to bribe me with business concessions to overlook discriminatory behavior? Jasmine asked, her voice carrying just enough for nearby passengers to hear. That's not what Gregory began, then stopped as he realized he was being recorded by multiple passengers. This isn't the appropriate venue for this discussion. Captain Evans interrupted. Mr. Harrington, Ms. Harrington, I need to inform you that United Airlines has made a decision. Given the circumstances and the significant delay already incurred, we'll be asking you both to deplane. This is outrageous. Patricia erupted. You can't be serious. I'm entirely serious, the captain replied. Your behavior has disrupted this flight and inconvenienced over 200 passengers. We've arranged alternate transportation for you on a later flight. Gregory's face hardened. You're making a catastrophic mistake. By this time tomorrow, you'll be looking for new employment, Captain. That's your prerogative to pursue, Captain Evans responded evenly. But right now, I need you both to gather your belongings and exit the aircraft. As if to punctuate the gravity of the situation, Jasmine's phone rang yet again. This time it was a video call from her mother. When she answered, Deborah Washington's face appeared, alongside that of Walter Washington, Jasmine's father. Baby girl, we're seeing everything on the news, her father said, his voice carrying the weight of his own experiences with discrimination. Released 5 years ago after DNA evidence exonerated him of the crime that had stolen 15 years of his life, Walter Washington knew better than most how systems of power operated. Dad, Jasmine said, emotion briefly cracking through her composed exterior. I wasn't expecting to see you. Your mother called me when she saw what was happening, he explained. Listen to me, Jasmine. You stand your ground. You paid for that seat. You earned your place in that cabin. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The simplicity and power of her father's words washed over Jasmine. After everything he had endured, wrongful conviction, years of appeals, the systematic dismantling of his dignity, Walter Washington still believed in standing up for what was right. I will, Dad, she promised. I love you both. As she ended the call, she became aware that many in the cabin had overheard this personal exchange. The human dimension of the situation seemed to shift the atmosphere slightly, with several passengers who had been annoyed by the delay now looking at Jasmine with newfound understanding. Patricia and Gregory Harrington, however, were unmoved. As flight attendants arrived to escort them from the plane, Patricia made one last desperate attempt. You people are always looking for handouts and special treatment, she hissed at Jasmine, her voice low but perfectly audible to nearby passengers. Just because you managed to fool your way into some money doesn't mean you belong here. The naked racism of the statement hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Several passengers gasped audibly. Emily Chen's recording captured every word. Dr. Reed stood instantly, his academic reserve finally breaking. That's enough, he said firmly. As a board member of DataSync, I can assure you this incident will be discussed in detail at our next meeting, Gregory. Gregory grabbed his wife's arm. Patricia, not another word. Let's go. As they were escorted down the aisle, the magnitude of what had just transpired began to settle over Jasmine. Tomorrow's negotiation had been completely upended. Her personal identity was now inseparable from her corporate identity in a way she had always strived to avoid. And for what? The simple dignity of sitting in the seat she had paid for. Yet even amid this chaos, Jasmine recognized an opportunity. The very public nature of this confrontation had exposed truths that normally remained hidden behind closed boardroom doors and polite corporate speak. The mask had slipped, revealing the face of prejudice that still operated within the highest levels of American business. The question now was how to transform this crisis into meaningful change, not just for herself or her company, but for everyone who had ever been told, explicitly or implicitly, that they didn't belong. As the Harringtons were escorted from the aircraft, Captain Evans approached Jasmine. "Ms. Washington, we're preparing to depart shortly. Would you prefer to take a moment in the airport lounge to collect yourself before we continue?" Jasmine considered the offer. The past 2 hours had been emotionally draining, and the strategic implications for tomorrow's meeting required immediate attention. "Yes, thank you. I won't be long." "Take whatever time you need," Captain Evans assured her. "We'll hold the flight." Normally, such accommodation would be unthinkable in the airline industry, but nothing about this situation was normal. The airline was clearly in damage control mode, willing to delay 200 passengers further to ensure their billionaire customer was satisfied. In the quiet of the United Airlines Premium Lounge, which had been cleared of other passengers to give her privacy, Jasmine initiated a conference call with her executive team. On screen appeared Zoe Taylor, her chief of staff, Marcus Chen, her CFO, Darius Williams, her chief legal counsel, and Rebecca Goldstein, head of public relations. "I assume you've all seen the footage," Jasmine began without preamble. "It's everywhere," Rebecca confirmed grimly. "Every major network, all social platforms. United Airlines is trending alongside your name and Neurotech. The Harringtons are being crucified online. What's our exposure?" Jasmine asked, turning to Darius. The attorney straightened his glasses. "Minimal from a legal standpoint. You were clearly the wronged party here. However, the data sync acquisition is now complicated. Gregory Harrington owns 12% of data sync personally, and his company controls another 17% through subsidiaries. He can't block the acquisition single-handedly," Marcus added, "but he could make it messy. The question is whether he'd be willing to take a financial hit just to spite you." Jasmine considered this. "What's the board's composition like?" Zoe pulled up a document on her tablet. 11 members total. Dr. Marcus Reed, who you've already met. 4 members generally aligned with Harrington. 3 independent directors who typically vote as a bloc. And 3 representatives from venture capital firms who are primarily concerned with maximizing their return on investment. "So we need 6 votes, Jasmine mused. Reed seems supportive, and the 3 VC representatives would likely back us if the terms remain favorable. That leaves the independent bloc. About that, Zoe interjected. Dr. Reed has been busy. He's already reached out to all 3 independent directors, who apparently were already concerned about Harrington's leadership style. They're requesting a call with you before tomorrow's meeting." A text message from Jonathan Pearson, United CEO, appeared on Jasmine's phone. "Board meeting in progress. United standing firmly behind you." Brandon Miller terminated effective immediately. Harrington's banned from United Airlines indefinitely. "What else do you need from us?" The swift and decisive action was noteworthy, though Jasmine was under no illusion that it was motivated purely by moral considerations. A public relations disaster involving discrimination against a black billionaire was simply bad business. "What's our timeline?" Jasmine asked her team. "Data Sync board meets at 9 a.m. tomorrow," Darius replied. "Our original offer was $58 per share, valuing the company at approximately $1.2 billion. And now?" Jasmine pressed. Marcus smiled slightly. "Their stock is already down nearly 4% in after-hours trading. By market open tomorrow, depending on how this story develops overnight, we could be looking at a significant discount." While Jasmine had no desire to capitalize on a public relations crisis, the business reality was undeniable. Data Sync's technology was the missing piece Neurotech needed, and their vulnerability created an opportunity. Here's what we're going to do, Jasmine decided. First, we maintain radio silence publicly. No statements, no tweets, nothing that could be construed as exploiting this situation. Rebecca nodded in agreement. Second, I want 3 alternative acquisition scenarios by morning. One at our original offer, one at a 15% discount, and one involving a structured buyout that would dilute Harrington's influence while keeping the overall valuation stable. What about Harrington Industries itself? Zoe asked. We've just received information that they're starting to take collateral damage from this incident. 2 major clients have already announced they're reviewing their relationship with Harrington's company. This presented an unexpected dimension. Jasmine had no personal vendetta against Gregory Harrington, his wife's behavior and his own threats notwithstanding. But business was business, and weakness created opportunity. Contact our M&A team, Jasmine instructed. Have them prepare a preliminary analysis of Harrington Industries subsidiaries. If there's a fire sale coming, I want to know which assets might fit our portfolio. As her team acknowledged these directives, a notification appeared on Jasmine's tablet. The security footage from inside the aircraft, which had previously been reviewed only by United staff, had somehow leaked online. Unlike the passenger recordings, this high-definition footage with clear audio captured every moment of the incident from multiple angles, leaving no room for misinterpretation. This changes everything, Rebecca said, watching the footage. The Harringtons are finished in polite society after this. Jasmine was less interested in their social downfall than in the business implications. Darius, does this leak create any legal complications for our acquisition strategy? The lawyer considered. Not directly, no. The footage was United's property, not ours. We had no hand in its release. A moment of clarity settled over Jasmine. Throughout her career, she had navigated spaces where she was unwelcome, unwanted, yet tolerated because of her exceptional abilities and financial resources. She had endured countless microaggressions, always maintaining her composure, always taking the high road. Today's incident was merely the latest in a lifetime of such experiences. But unlike previous occasions, this one had been captured, broadcast, and witnessed by millions. It had exposed the subtle and not-so-subtle ways bias operated, even in the rarefied air of first-class cabins and corporate boardrooms. I want to be clear about something, Jasmine told her team. We're not going to be vindictive here. That's not who we are, and it's not what Neurotech stands for. But we are going to be strategic. The Harringtons showed their true colors today, and there are natural consequences for that. Our job is to navigate those consequences in a way that benefits our company, our employees, and ultimately, our vision for ethical AI development. Her team nodded in solemn agreement. One more thing, Jasmine added as the call was wrapping up. I want a comprehensive review of our own hiring practices, promotion patterns, and corporate culture. If we're going to hold others accountable for discriminatory behavior, we need to ensure our own house is in order. As she ended the call, Jasmine felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. What had begun as a personal indignity had evolved into something larger, a potential catalyst for genuine change, both within her organization and perhaps beyond. Captain Evans appeared at the lounge entrance. Ms. Washington, we're ready when you are. Jasmine gathered her belongings. It was time to return to the flight, to New York, and to the negotiations that awaited. But she would be arriving under very different circumstances than she had anticipated when boarding. As she walked back toward the gate, her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Reed, board members taking emergency call now. Sentiment shifting strongly in your favor. Harrington isolation complete. Tomorrow will be interesting. Indeed it would. As Jasmine re-entered the aircraft, the atmosphere had transformed completely. Where earlier there had been tension and hostility, now there was a strange mix of deference and curiosity. Flight attendants who had previously averted their eyes now offered warm smiles and attentive service. Passengers who had been annoyed by the delay now watched her with newfound respect and interest. "Ms. Washington, we've taken the liberty of moving your belongings to seat 3A, a new flight attendant named Teresa informed her. "Can I get you anything before takeoff? Perhaps champagne?" "Just water, thank you," Jasmine replied, settling into her rightful seat. The window view she had specifically selected when booking was finally hers. Captain Evans made an announcement over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize again for the unusual delay. We're now ready for departure and expect to arrive in New York only slightly behind schedule. United Airlines thanks you for your patience and understanding." What went unspoken but was understood by everyone aboard was that a significant incident had occurred, power dynamics had shifted dramatically, and the usual rules had been temporarily suspended. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Jonathan Pearson called again. "Ms. Washington, I've just finished an emergency board meeting. Brandon Miller has been terminated effective immediately, and we're implementing a comprehensive review of our training procedures and complaint resolution processes." "That's good to hear," Jasmine acknowledged, though unfortunate that it took an incident involving someone with my resources to prompt these changes. There was an uncomfortable pause before Pearson responded. "Point taken. We're also establishing a customer advocacy office reporting directly to me, with a focus on ensuring equal treatment for all passengers. We'd value your input on the structure and mission of this office, if you're willing." "I'll have my team follow up," Jasmine agreed, recognizing the opportunity to create systemic change rather than just individual consequences. After the call ended, Dr. Reed approached from his seat several rows back. "Ms. Washington, forgive the interruption. Several other DataSync board members are coincidentally on this flight, and they've asked if you'd be willing to speak with us informally before tomorrow's meeting." This was unexpected. "Which board members?" "Samantha Chen and William Okafor from the Independent Block, and Victoria Sanderson representing Horizon Ventures, one of our major investors." The significance wasn't lost on Jasmine. Together with Reed, these four constituted enough votes to approve the acquisition regardless of Gregory Harrington's opposition. "I'd be happy to meet with them," she agreed. As the plane reached cruising altitude, an impromptu meeting convened in the first-class cabin. Samantha Chen, a former tech executive in her 50s, William Okafor, a distinguished academic in his 60s, and Victoria Sanderson, a sharp venture capitalist in her 40s, all gathered in the empty seats surrounding Jasmine. "Let me begin by saying how appalled we are by what transpired," Chen stated frankly. "Gregory has always been difficult, but Patricia's behavior and his subsequent threats were beyond the pale." Okafor nodded in agreement. "We've been concerned about Gregory's leadership for some time. The company's cultural issues aren't limited to this incident. Which brings us to tomorrow's meeting," Sanderson added, getting straight to the point. "Your acquisition offer was already compelling. The board was leaning toward approval even before today. Now, given the circumstances, we're prepared to expedite the process under slightly revised terms." Jasmine maintained her poker face. "I'm listening." "Gregory's position is compromised, but he still controls significant voting shares," Sanderson explained. "We're proposing a structured buyout that would maintain the overall valuation while creating an accelerated exit for Harrington's interests." The proposal outlined by the board members was remarkably similar to one of the scenarios Jasmine's team was already developing. DataSync would retain its original valuation, preserving shareholder value, but Harrington would be removed from operational control immediately rather than during the transition period originally planned. "This seems workable," Jasmine acknowledged, "though I'd need to review the details with my legal team before committing." "Of course," Chen agreed. "We can formalize everything tomorrow. This is merely a good faith discussion to ensure we're aligned before the official meeting." As their conversation continued, covering technical integration plans and talent retention strategies, Jasmine couldn't help but reflect on the strange circumstances that had brought them together. Had she simply accepted another seat when Brandon first suggested it, she would have entered tomorrow's negotiations at a significant disadvantage, unaware of the board's internal divisions and Harrington's precarious position. Meanwhile, news of the incident continued to spread. Passengers throughout the plane were watching videos of the confrontation on their devices, occasionally glancing toward the first-class cabin where its protagonist was now engaged in what appeared to be a high-level business discussion. Emily Chen, who had recorded the initial video, approached hesitantly. "Ms. Washington, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened to you. I've experienced similar things, though never quite so blatant." "Thank you for documenting it," Jasmine replied sincerely. "Sometimes these incidents need to be seen to be believed." "Actually," Emily admitted, "I work in public relations. I recently left my position at a major firm because I was tired of helping corporations manage their way out of legitimate controversies. I believe in accountability." Jasmine studied the young woman with new interest. "Have you found a new position yet?" "I'm exploring options," Emily replied. "Call my office next week," Jasmine suggested. "We might have an opening that aligns with your values." As the flight continued, something remarkable happened. The usual first-class silence, where passengers pretended not to notice each other, gave way to actual conversation. Dr. Reed shared stories from his academic research on corporate culture. Victoria Sanderson discussed venture capital trends. William Okafor talked about his work on AI ethics, a subject of particular interest to Jasmine. In economy class, a different kind of conversation was happening. The videos of the incident had circulated throughout the plane, and passengers were engaged in frank discussions about race, privilege, and accountability. It was the kind of dialogue rarely heard in public spaces, especially not at 36,000 feet. 3 hours into the flight, a flight attendant approached with an update from the captain. "Ms. Washington, the Harringtons have issued a public statement attempting to explain their actions. It's not being well received." Jasmine checked her tablet to find that Patricia and Gregory Harrington had released a carefully worded apology that managed to express regret for any misunderstanding, while simultaneously suggesting that Jasmine had overreacted to an innocent seat mix-up. The public reaction was swift and merciless, with commentators from across the political spectrum condemning the statement as tone-deaf and insufficient. More significantly, Harrington Industries stock had begun falling in after-hours trading, with analysts predicting a substantial drop when markets opened the next day. "Ms. Washington," Teresa said, returning with another update, "several passengers have asked if they could speak with you briefly. They wanted to express their support." Jasmine was touched by the gesture. Of course. What followed was unexpected. One by one, passengers from throughout the aircraft stopped by to offer words of encouragement or share their own experiences with discrimination. An elderly black woman squeezed Jasmine's hand and whispered, "You stood your ground for all of us." A young white father introduced his daughter and said, "Thank you for showing her what courage looks like." A middle-aged Asian businessman simply nodded respectfully and said, "Well done." As the plane began its descent into New York, Jasmine made a decision. She stood and addressed the first-class cabin. "I want to thank you all for your patience today. I know the delay was inconvenient, and I appreciate your understanding. As a gesture of goodwill, I've arranged for each passenger on this flight to receive a travel voucher for your next journey." The announcement was met with surprised murmurs and scattered applause. Additionally, she continued, "I believe we all witnessed something important today. Not just an incident of discrimination, but also its resolution. Change happens when we refuse to accept the unacceptable, when we stand firm in the face of injustice, and when allies speak up rather than remain silent. Today wasn't just about a seat assignment. It was about dignity, respect, and the kind of society we want to build together." As Jasmine returned to her seat for landing, she felt a sense of clarity and purpose that transcended the business deal awaiting her tomorrow. This incident, painful as it had been, had created an opportunity for meaningful change, not just in one company or industry, but perhaps in how these all-too-common scenarios played out in the future. The plane touched down at JFK International Airport, and as Jasmine gathered her belongings, Captain Evans emerged from the cockpit. "Ms. Washington, it was an honor having you aboard today, despite the circumstances. I want you to know that many of us at United are grateful for how this situation unfolded. It's forcing necessary conversations that have been avoided for too long." Jasmine shook his hand. "Thank you, Captain. Sometimes it takes a public incident to create private reckonings." As she deplaned and walked through the terminal toward her waiting car, Jasmine's phone buzzed with a final update from Zoe. Harrington Industries down 7% in pre-market trading. 3 competing offers already incoming for their AI division. DataSync board now unanimously in favor of our acquisition. Tomorrow's meeting will be a formality. The business victory was satisfying, but it was the broader implications that occupied Jasmine's thoughts as her car navigated through nighttime Manhattan toward her hotel. Today, one woman had refused to give up her rightful seat. Tomorrow, perhaps the example would inspire others to stand their ground as well. 1 week after the flight incident, Jasmine Washington stood at the podium in DataSync's Manhattan headquarters, addressing the company's employees as their new CEO. "Today marks not just a business acquisition, but the beginning of a partnership," she told the assembled staff. Neuratech and DataSync share a vision of ethical AI development that serves humanity's best interests. Together, we're positioned to transform how technology addresses our most pressing challenges. The acquisition had proceeded exactly as planned, though through a path no one could have predicted. The DataSync board had approved Neuratech's offer unanimously, with Gregory Harrington noticeably absent from the vote. The deal valued DataSync at the original offer price of $58 per share, preserving shareholder value while implementing an accelerated transition plan that removed Harrington from operational control immediately. The business press had dubbed it the first-class acquisition, a play on words that captured both the luxury cabin where it all began and the strategic masterclass that followed. Financial analysts praised the deal's structure, which protected DataSync's innovative culture while providing Neuratech with critical technology to advance its healthcare AI initiatives. But the ripple effects extended far beyond this single business transaction. United Airlines had launched a comprehensive anti-bias training program, developed in consultation with Neuratech's newly formed ethics division. The program would be mandatory for all customer-facing employees, with a particular focus on recognizing and addressing unconscious bias in real-time interactions. Brandon Miller, the flight attendant whose discriminatory behavior had catalyzed the entire incident, had published an open letter in which he acknowledged his biases and took responsibility for his actions. Rather than disappearing into obscurity, he had begun speaking at industry events about his awakening and the importance of confronting prejudice in customer service contexts. "I never saw myself as racist," he wrote. "But watching the footage of how I treated Ms. Washington compared to how I interacted with Ms. Harrington forced me to recognize patterns in my behavior that I had always rationalized or denied. This painful recognition has become the catalyst for my personal growth." Patricia Harrington had retreated from public view after her disastrous attempt at damage control. Her social standing within Manhattan's elite circles had crumbled as longtime friends distanced themselves from the controversy. The charity boards that had once welcomed her checkbook now politely suggested she focus on personal matters for the time being. Gregory Harrington had suffered an even more dramatic fall. Following the incident and the subsequent stock decline, Harrington Industries board had called an emergency meeting resulting in his voluntary resignation. Further investigations had uncovered a pattern of discriminatory practices within the company, leading to multiple executive departures and a comprehensive cultural overhaul. Perhaps most significantly, 3 additional companies had come forward with stories of experiencing similar treatment from the Harringtons during business negotiations. What had once been dismissed as difficult personalities or aggressive negotiating tactics was now recognized for what it truly was: discrimination masked as business strategy. Dr. Marcus Reed had accepted a position on Neuratech's advisory board, bringing his expertise in corporate ethics and inclusive organizational structures to help guide the company's growth. His academic perspective complemented Jasmine's business acumen, creating a powerful partnership focused on ethical technology development. Emily Chen had indeed joined Neuratech's communications team, bringing her commitment to transparency and accountability to the company's public relations strategy. Her first-hand experience documenting the flight incident had given her unique insights into how corporations should respond to controversies, with honesty rather than spin. As for Jasmine herself, the incident had transformed her public profile in ways she had never sought but now embraced. While she had previously shunned the spotlight, preferring to let her work speak for itself, she now recognized the power of visibility and representation. "Sometimes you have to be seen to create change," she told a reporter in a rare interview. "For every person who looks like me and has been told they don't belong, my message is simple: take your rightful seat at the table." Or in my case, on the plane. Jasmine had established a foundation specifically focused on supporting minorities in business environments, providing not just financial backing but mentorship and legal resources for those facing discrimination. The First Class Foundation, named with the same double meaning as the acquisition, had already received thousands of applications and millions in additional funding from supportive corporations. 2 months after the incident, Jasmine found herself back on a United Airlines flight, again in seat 3A. This time, the experience couldn't have been more different. The crew recognized her immediately, treating her with the respect her ticket warranted without the uncomfortable deference that had followed the incident. As she settled in, the passenger beside her, an older white gentleman, smiled in recognition. "Ms. Washington, it's an honor. Your stand that day changed more than you might realize." Jasmine raised an eyebrow questioningly. "I'm Robert Keller, former VP at Westridge Financial," he explained. "After watching what happened to you, I started noticing similar patterns in my own company's practices. I've since left to start a financial advisory firm specifically focused on minority-owned businesses that have traditionally been underserved by mainstream institutions." This was the transformation Jasmine found most meaningful, not the public apologies or corporate training programs, but the quiet individual reckonings happening across industries as people recognized and addressed their own biases. The flight took off smoothly, and as New York receded below them, Jasmine reflected on how a simple act of standing her ground had created such far-reaching consequences. From a single disputed seat assignment had come corporate reforms, policy changes, career transformations, and countless private reckonings. Her mother had called it right years ago: success is the best revenge. But Jasmine now understood that success wasn't just about personal achievement or financial gains. True success meant creating pathways for others, challenging systemic barriers, and transforming moments of injustice into opportunities for lasting change. As the plane reached cruising altitude, Jasmine opened her laptop to continue working on Neuroteca's latest healthcare initiative, an AI system designed to identify and address disparities in medical treatment across demographic groups. The project had been in development before the flight incident, but now carried additional significance in light of recent events. The captain's voice came over the intercom: "Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached our cruising altitude of 38,000 feet. The weather ahead looks clear, and we expect an on-time arrival in San Francisco. On behalf of United Airlines, I want to thank you for choosing to fly with us today." Jasmine smiled at the ordinary announcement, appreciating the simple dignity of being treated like any other first-class passenger, no more, no less. That had been all she wanted from the beginning. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Reed: "First Class Foundation applications just hit 10,000. We're going to need a bigger team." She typed a quick reply: "Start recruiting. This is just the beginning." And it was. What had started as one woman refusing to give up her seat had evolved into a movement that was opening doors and creating opportunities for thousands. The journey had just begun, but the direction was clear. From her window seat at 38,000 feet, the view was limitless. Jasmine's story teaches us that dignity isn't negotiable, regardless of your social or economic status. Even a billionaire faces discrimination, proving racism persists at every level of society. The incident reveals how systems often protect the privileged until forced to change through unwavering resistance and public accountability. Standing your ground isn't just about personal vindication, it creates ripples of transformation. When Jasmine refused to move, she catalyzed change that impacted corporate policies, inspired others to recognize their biases, and created pathways for those facing similar barriers. The story demonstrates the power of visibility. Discrimination thrives in shadows, but when documented and witnessed, it becomes impossible to deny. Every person who records injustice, speaks up as an ally, or refuses to accept mistreatment contributes to dismantling these systems. Perhaps most importantly, the narrative shows that true success extends beyond personal achievement. By leveraging her moment of injustice into institutional change, Jasmine transformed an individual indignity into collective progress. Her foundation, the corporate reforms, and countless private reckonings all stemmed from one courageous decision to take her rightful seat. Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination like Jasmine did? What would you have done in her position? Drop a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences with racial bias in everyday situations. If this story moved you or opened your eyes to how discrimination operates, please hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful narratives of courage and justice. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message of standing firm against injustice. Remember that change happens one seat, one stand, one voice at a time. Thank you for watching, and may you always find the courage to claim your rightful place in this world.